Novo Nordisk suing Hims and Hers, accusing the telehealth firm of infringing its U.S. patent on key ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy.
So why is this happening now? So Novo Nordisk just released a brand new pill, an oral form of semaglutide or Ozempic. Now, I thought this was going to be a ho-hum because oral semaglutide has been around for a long time, doesn't work that well. The side effects are terrible, but whatever. So Novo Nordisk, we're going to have a whole separate conversation about that in our next podcast. But so Novo Nordisk issues this new pill because GLP-1s have become so incredibly popular. And I think they're thinking that this pill is going to help them catch up with Eli Lilly because Eli Lilly makes tirzepatide, and tirzepatide's become much more popular than semaglutide. Why? In my opinion, it's a much better drug. Fewer side effects, more weight loss. What more could you want? But anyway, so the moment Novo Nordisk issues this pill, Hims comes out with their own version of oral semaglutide, their own pill. And Novo Nordisk really fast slapped them with this lawsuit. I think they were expecting it because I think actually Hims withdrew the pill 2 days before Novo Nordisk hit them with the lawsuit. Now, the crazy thing about this is why this is happening about the pill. So Novo Nordisk spent a bunch of money researching and creating a pill that would actually work. So semaglutide is a peptide. Like any other protein, when you eat it, it gets broken down in your stomach and absorbed as protein. Peptides get broken down into amino acids, and they're good for you, amino acids. You need your protein. But in order for a peptide to be absorbed intact, you got to do something special to protect it so it can actually get absorbed into your system. So Novo Nordisk did all that research, figured it out, made the pill. Okay. Did Hims do any of that? No. Did Hims create something that was actually absorbable? I do not think so. I believe not. This is basically a cheap knockoff that doesn't work. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know. I've not tried it, and it's of course not available. But anyway, so Novo Nordisk is not only asking them to stop, cease and desist, don't make that pill, but as far as I can tell, they're asking Hims to be stripped of all of its compounding ability of semaglutide, not just the pill. To quote an article, Novo is asking the court to permanently ban Hims from selling compounded versions of its drugs that infringe on companies' patents and is seeking to recover damages. Okay, so that gets us into a much bigger category of what's going to happen to compounded GLP-1s. So to recap, to go back in history a little bit, semaglutide was originally introduced by Novo Nordisk, and then Eli Lilly came out with tirzepatide. Very quickly, these became incredibly popular, and there was a shortage. Because of that shortage, the FDA put those two drugs on a shortage list, and that opened up the floodgates for compounding pharmacies to make their own versions of these drugs. And they did. For a couple years, they were going gangbusters making compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide. And those work great. And like millions and millions of people use them, lost weight, they're very happy. Then both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly caught up to the demand. They created extra manufacturing facilities, and they were able to stop the shortage. So now they can make enough of it. But meanwhile, the compounding pharmacies were scrambling around like, what do? We still want to make money off of these things. And here's where I think this lawsuit's going to have a big impact. So the compounding pharmacies went two different ways. There's a set of them like Hims, and there are several. And again, this is research off the internet. So I as of this recording, this is the best I understand it. There are several compounding pharmacies that continue to offer its own compounded version. Hims and Hers is one, Mochi Health is one, Henry Meds, there's a few others. And there's a whole other different category of online access that they switched to offering the brand name drugs. So for instance, Ro, in case you have watched the Super Bowl last year, not just now when the Seahawks won, but last year there was a big ad for Ro, and I thought, gosh, how are they doing this? This was right after the shortage stopped. But anyway, Ro and some other online pharmacies like GoodRx and Walgreens weight management, those shifted over to offering prescriptions to actual name brand medications that were offered by Novo Nordisk and Lilly. So we have a divide here, right? And the thing is, there's this legal loophole, which has been, this is why it hasn't exploded till now, because the pill was such a, I would say, more egregious violation, because Hims did not recreate what Novo Nordisk created. They did not make that stabilizing molecule. They just made semaglutide into a pill form. And so the FDA said, hey, this isn't tested, this isn't legal, this is bad. So that was so very clearly a violation, right? So the compounding laws, the way they exist, okay, it is legal to create a compounded version if a doctor or a prescribing person, I think, some states, it could be a nurse practitioner, I think, if a doctor determines that a patient needs a special version of the drug or a special dose that cannot be obtained from the manufacturer, that in that case, it would be legal to compound it. So for instance, let's say you start on a dose of tirzepatide and then you go up to the next dose, but the next dose is way too much for you. And the first dose was way too low. You really need one in between. And they don't make that. Then it's illegal to prescribe a compounded version that's a different dose. So what these companies have been arguing is these patients need a different version, a different dose, or combined with other. So if you've been listening to the show, you know I've got stories for days about what goes on in med spas. I finally put them all in a book. It's called Medspa Mayhem. I wrote it because I got tired of hearing about people getting hurt by providers who have no business holding a syringe. You'll read about real patients, real nightmares, but more importantly, you'll know exactly what to look for when you walk into any med spa and what questions to ask. It's part expose, part survival guide, and it might just save your life. Medspa Mayhem will leave you informed, entertained, and a little shocked at what's really going on behind the business of the aesthetics industry. The link is in the episode description. Read it before you book your next appointment, because beauty should never come at the cost of your safety. Drugs or vitamins. And so it's an illegal gray zone there, right? How many of those cases it's really justified? How many it's just trying to get around the patent? So I think that this is going to have far-reaching consequences in the whole world of GLP-1s. And as you all know, I am on the record as a big believer in these drugs, well, especially tirzepatide. That I think is way better. But there's new ones that are out now. Retatrutide just came out I believe. I don't have a date on that, so don't quote me. And there are new ones coming down the pike. And it's very exciting because it is going to improve the health of the American population. And I have absolutely no doubt that these are good drugs. This is a battle over money and patents. So I'm really anxious to see where this goes. I do think that this pill that Hims kind of defiantly created really pushed this whole issue over the edge. So stay tuned. It's very exciting. I certainly think there is going to be no shortage of access to these drugs. They are going to be expensive. I think that the drug companies, and there are other drug companies working on GLP-1s as well, but right now it's Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. They spend a lot of money. It's true. They spend a lot of money doing the trials and getting FDA approval for their drugs. And that's why these patents exist, in order to encourage drug companies to do that research. And the compounding pharmacies really are not allowed to come along and make a knockoff until a generic form, until that patent runs out. So unfortunately, or fortunately, we live in a world where those are the laws, and those patents have many, many, many years to go. So when there is an update on this lawsuit, I will bring it to you. And thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, do me a favor and share it with a friend who's considering any aesthetic treatments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And drop a comment telling me your biggest takeaway. I actually read them all. Let's keep each other safe and elevate the standards in the med spa industry.